So here we are, this is the detailed review of OnePlus's very first folding phone ever. And definitely my favorite phone of the year as well. But is everything good about the phone? Not necessarily. And to know what's good, what's bad, stay tuned till the end of the video. And trust me, this is going to be a really long one. So get your popcorn and coffee ready. If you're here for the first time, I'm Eshad. You're watching Trakin Tech English, your destination for detailed, incisive gadget reviews. The first thing that strikes you about the OnePlus Open are the dimensions and the weight. The phone is deceptively light and slim as well for a book style foldable. Now our variant is the vegan leather variant. It's called Voyager Black and of course it's in black color, but there's also another green color of the phone and it's called Emerald Dusk, and that's something that we saw in Unbox Therapy's video. Now when folded, the thickness of the OnePlus Open is 11.9 millimeters and unfolded it's 5.9 millimeters. And it weighs under 240 grams, which is actually lower than the weight of the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Now, despite this gargantuan camera module, the weight distribution has been done really well. So much so that when you're holding it in the hand, it doesn't feel like it will topple over. That's something that I noticed with the Xiaomi 12s Ultra when I reviewed it back then. By the way, what are your thoughts on the camera module design itself? Some people like it, some people don't. I don't mind it, it's not too bad, but yes, the Hasselblad logo is a little too big for my taste. That said, the camera module juts out way too much from the rear, so when you place it on a table, it wobbles a lot. And considering the fact that I wanted to use this phone laid flat out on a surface so that, I could type something on it, it was actually not very handy. Now, one thing to note is that the OnePlus Open is not the thinnest and lightest foldable phone in the world. That distinction goes to the Honor Magic V2. But since that phone hasn't officially launched in India, I haven't had a chance to test it. Honor, if you're watching this video, take note. But regardless, the in-hand feel, the fit and finish, the overall build quality of the phone is absolutely exemplary on the OnePlus Open. There are tight tolerances everywhere and there are premium materials being used in the construction as well. The frame on the OnePlus Open is actually made of aluminum. This vegan leather back especially offers a lot of grip. In fact, the case that you get inside the box is something that I didn't prefer to use with the phone itself. I like to actually rock it naked. Now, one other reason why the OnePlus Open is actually lightweight is because it uses something called cobalt molybdenum, in the construction of the frame itself. And that is a material that is lighter than, 316L surgical grade steel that's generally used in other foldable phones. So that way, OnePlus can keep it light as well. But the hinge of the OnePlus Open is where it's at. On the Open, OnePlus uses Oppo's trademark Flexion hinge, which is a single spine structure. It's a lot of complicated engineering that's happening on the inside to make the phone lighter and yet maintain the sturdiness of the hinge mechanism itself. And the opening and closing of the hinge is so well calibrated that at no point did I feel that the build quality was compromised in any way whatsoever. And there's no resistance at all when you're opening and closing it. And when you're closing it, you get this really nice thud as well. Plus, it's an entirely no gap design between the two folding halves. As for the durability, in my limited experience of opening and closing folding phones, I feel that the hinge mechanism is rock solid. And if my word is not enough, TÜV Rheinland also certifies it for reliable folding mechanism for, wait for it, 10 lakh folds. I think that's the maximum number of opening and closing mechanisms that any brand has promised till date on a book style foldable, so kudos to OnePlus on that. Now, as for the power button, it's at the bottom right spine and there is an embedded fingerprint scanner which is very fast to unlock. There's no problem there. However, the volume rocker is placed above it and it's a little too at the top for me to reach easily with one hand, but then you get used to it. There's also a very handy alert slider. Yes, the alert slider exists. It's also placed a little too high for my liking, but then again, it's there and it works really well. Apart from that, there are 3 mics, a dual SIM card tray, and a quad speaker grill which functions as a triple speaker. More about that later. Now, on the OnePlus Open, you also get an infrared blaster with which you can control the appliances in your house. And yes, there's a Type-C port at the bottom, which is Gen 3.1 speeds and not USB 2.0 like the OnePlus 11 has. So I'm glad that OnePlus hasn't skimped out on that. Finally, the Open also has IPX4 rating, so it's everyday water resistant. But on something like the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 5, you get IPX rating, which is better. So we'll have to give OnePlus a few more chances to get there. But yeah, this is where it's at right now. And it's definitely not dust resistant at all because of the folding mechanism. Alright, now coming to the displays on the phone, the internal and the external display. This is where the spec avalanche starts. OnePlus has gone berserk with the specs. Except for the sizes of the displays, 6.31 inch on the cover display and 7.82 on the inside. Most of the other specs are similar. For example, both the displays have 10-bit AMOLED panels with 2K resolution and 100% DCI-P3 color gamut support as well. And you've got LTPO 3.0 technology, which is 1 to 120Hz refresh rate on the internal display and 10 to 120Hz refresh rate on the external one. And when you take the phone outdoors and the auto brightness kicks in high brightness mode, both the displays can reach a peak brightness of 1400 nits in high brightness mode. But the actual peak brightness when you're watching HDR content is a whopping 2800 nits. I think that's the highest on a phone yet. You also do get HDR10 and HDR10 Plus in supported streaming apps like YouTube, and you also get support for Dolby Vision playback on Netflix. There's 240Hz touch sampling rate and 1440Hz pulse width modulation as well. So yeah, if you are sensitive to low light flicker on high refresh rate displays, that's not going to be a problem. Well done, OnePlus. Now moving on to the experience of using these displays, the first thing that I noticed when I opened the display itself is that the crease is barely visible and you can barely feel it as well. And you know what? It's not a single indentation. There are two indents. When you sort of slide across, you can feel it, but you can barely feel it, and that's really well done. And the other thing that I really liked about the inner display is this cover protection film that has been used. It's not that much of a fingerprint magnet like other foldable phones that I've used. And you know what used to happen with those other foldable phones is that I couldn't use them in the dark mode. This one I can, because it doesn't attract too much smudges as much as those did. Also, the touch experience on both the displays has been fantastic, extremely responsive, extremely fast as well, tuned really well with the software too. And if you ask me, the aspect ratio of 20:9 for the outer display is absolutely perfect, because that is the same aspect ratio on the OnePlus 11 as well. In comparison, something like the Galaxy Z Fold 5 has a narrow display. Of course, it's become wider than before, but you know, this just feels perfect for daily use because this feels like a regular phone when you use it, folded. Now, the inner display has a very interesting aspect ratio of 1.0758:1, which is so close to 1:1 that you cannot tell apart with a naked eye that this is not a square display exactly, but it's so close. Now, while the outer display is perfect for watching videos or even playing games, widescreen format games, the inner display is perfect for emails, perfect for reading, perfect for productivity. All of that I'll talk about in the software section of the review. Now, like I mentioned, these are the brightest displays on a phone. So watching Netflix content on this is absolutely a treat. And it's so bright that when you take it outdoors, the sun might close its eyes. Bad joke, but you get what I'm saying. Also, OnePlus uses this brightness to its advantage to actually offer Pro XDR displays on both the front and the inside as well. Which means that in certain supported apps, like in the OnePlus Photos app, you can actually see the Pro XDR toggle. And when you click it and when the brightness information is not displayed, you can see the difference very clearly. And OnePlus also offers a Pro mode in the display with great color calibration. So the delta E is really low, which means that you can actually trust these displays for your editing needs as well. So if you're editing photos or videos, the colors will be very close to natural. And the haptic feedback with the support of O haptics is very tight, it's very crisp, and it's very, very good. It's second only to the Pixel 8 series that I tested recently. Now, by the way, the inner display has an ultra thin glass protection, like I mentioned, but the outer display has ceramic guard. Now, this ceramic guard, according to OnePlus, is 20% more impact resistant compared to Gorilla Glass Victus. I really don't want to drop it to see if that is actually true. Also, you do get a pre-applied screen protector on the outer display as well, which is of very good quality actually. So it goes without saying that these two displays, the cover display and the one on the inside, are two of the most proficient displays that I've seen on a phone yet, let alone a foldable phone for that matter. And more importantly, by matching the specs, the seamless interaction that you can get from moving from one display to the other, from the outer to the inner to the inner to the outer, is so seamless. It's very, very nice. Now, like I said, there are 4 speaker grills, but a triple speaker setup, and it's a spatial audio setup as well with support for Dolby Atmos. And this is an absolutely fantastic speaker. It gets loud, it sounds rich, it's got so much bass and low-end grunt to it. Take a listen to it right next to the iPhone 15 Pro Max and let me know what you guys think. The OnePlus Open also supports lossless wireless codecs like LDAC and LHDC as well for the audiophiles in the house. Now, the seamlessness of the display itself also extends to the software experience, which has been tuned very well on the OnePlus Open. Now, before I talk about what all you can do with the software, let me tell you that you get OxygenOS 13.2 based on Android 13, and OnePlus promises 4 years of software updates and 5 years of security updates for the phone itself. Now, considering these are premium flagship phones, I would have loved it if OnePlus could have offered somewhere close to what Google offers, 7 years of software updates, so at least 5 years would have been nice, but still, this is not too bad either. You know, OnePlus is also working very closely with Google for the software experience itself, and when you look at the outer display, the software experience is very similar to what you get with the OnePlus 11, but all the action is on the inner display, and here's what you can do with it. Almost all the apps that I tried out seamlessly move from the outer display to the inner one and vice versa. Sometimes the aspect ratio of certain games would break, but that's more of a developer problem more than anything else. Most of your regularly used apps like Instagram, WhatsApp, X, all of that work absolutely fine on both the outer display and the inner display as well. Now, talking about Twitter's X app, I would suggest using the Twitter Lite app because on the inner display it doesn't have a tablet app that is specific for it. So the Twitter Lite app, which is basically a web version of the app, is better. Now, you have a taskbar at the bottom, and this taskbar is a persistent one as well. So it's available with a long press on any app, so you can switch between apps very easily. I also like the fact that you can access the app drawer from the taskbar and your recent files as well. The option to access your recent files I felt was very thoughtful and intuitive. This is something that I kept using over and over again. Plus, you can have split screen apps with a floating window on top of it. I really like the 2-finger swipe down gesture to invoke the split screen. By the way, you can even have 3 windows at once, but the third app generally peeks from one corner of the display. In this case, if you want to switch to the third app, you'll just have to tap on the window that's peeking in. You can also have up to 9 such regularly used multi-window setups saved as an app group as well. So what I've done is my Files app, where I see the videos, and the Gmail app where I have chats with my editors, I've made them into an app group, so it's pretty helpful. Certain OnePlus apps also seamlessly transition into the tablet mode. For example, the calculator opens up by default in the scientific calculator mode and has the option to directly go into the floating window as well. I really like the animation where the calculator's elements adjust themselves to orient themselves into the 2 splits that are formed when you open the display. The camera app also offers you the option to see an immediate preview on the side. You can switch to a dual preview so the person being shot can tell you how to frame it, or you can even use it to take a selfie with the on-screen controls. In fact, many third-party apps also offer a split-screen view where YouTube's video itself plays on the top half of the display and the bottom half has the controls, which I thought was very, very good. So the entire app support for the inner tablet-like display and of course the multitasking options that you get with it, all of that have been done really well, and of course they're seamless as well. But one thing I noticed is that if you want to have 3 windows on the same screen, Galaxy Z Fold 5 does it better than the OnePlus Open. Anyway, another thing I must mention about the software experience with the OnePlus Open is that I didn't face a single glitch or a bug while using the software on the phone. In fact, I've actually faced more bugs on Pixel 8 series and the iPhone 15 Pro series as well. This, in its current form, is a very polished experience, and I'm really glad about that. Alright, let's talk about the performance, and internally you get Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, 512 GB of UFS 4.0 storage and 16 GB of LPDDR5X RAM. Again, just crazy specs. And the performance tuning is fantastic for a foldable phone. In fact, let's take a look at the benchmark scores compared to the OnePlus 11 and the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, 2 candy bar phones. So in Antutu version 10, the OnePlus Open scored the highest. Same is true for both Geekbench single core and multi-core scores. And the CPU stability scores were pretty neck to neck in our 40-thread 30-minute CPU throttle test. And so was the case for the GPU stability score in the 3D Mark wildlife stress test. The UFS 4.0 storage speeds are also pretty neck to neck on all the 3 phones. Now, if you like gaming like I do on mobile devices, then I generally preferred the widescreen display on the outside for gaming itself, and considering that the aspect ratio is perfect for it, it was a blast to play games on this phone. So whether you're playing Call of Duty, whether you're playing Genshin Impact, or something even as intense as Alien Isolation, all of that works really well on the OnePlus Open. So to test that out, I did capture the FPS data in a 25-minute session that I had with Genshin Impact at high settings and 60 frames per second. So we got an average FPS of 57.209 frames per second. Until about the 17-minute mark, the FPS was hovering around the 59-60 mark, and then it started dropping to 54-55 after that. The phone also hit a peak device skin temperature of 43.4 degrees. Honestly though, I didn't face any heating or throttling issues per se with the OnePlus Open when I was using it regularly, so that's definitely a good thing, and that's definitely a huge relief coming from something like the Tensor G3 on the Pixel 8 and the Pixel 8 Pro. And while the performance tuning is good, the battery life is equally fantastic, and I am taken aback by how good it was and how long the phone actually lasts. So regularly, the 4805 split cell battery inside the OnePlus Open gave me a screen on time of anywhere between 6 hours to 6.5 hours in regular usage. On one occasion when I got 6 hours 30 minutes of screen on time, I had actually battered the phone that time. In that period, I had 2 hours of Twitter usage, 30 minutes of CPU throttling test, 30 minutes of camera usage, 40 minutes each of Instagram and Genshin Impact, and much more. And this 6 hours of screen on time means that you can actually end up with about 20% left in the bank at the end of the day of, regular to moderate usage, which is very good. Even the battery charging speed is fantastic. Inside the box, you get an 80-watt Superbook charger, but the phone supports 67-watt charging speeds, and it takes about 42-43 minutes to charge from 1% to 100%. Again, extremely fast charging for a foldable phone, which is something that I actually like. But I did sorely miss wireless charging on the OnePlus Open, especially considering this is a premium phone and generally I like to charge my phone wirelessly in my car. I couldn't do that, so it was a bit of a disappointment. But then again, the phone charges fast and it lasts long, so this is a compromise that maybe you can make. And if you're wondering if the call quality and network support is good, yes, I got rock solid 5G performance. The earpiece is crisp, it's loud, absolutely no concerns there whatsoever. And you get the support for latest Wi-Fi 7 protocol, you get support for Bluetooth 5.3, there's support for NFC as well. All the basics are covered. Alright, coming to the cameras, and I know that you must be waiting for it, and it's again an avalanche of specs. There are 5 cameras in total, 1 primary camera, 1 ultra-wide, 3x periscope, a couple of selfie cameras, the specs for which should be up on your screen right now. Now, as for the experience of using the cameras with the OnePlus Open, it's been good and bad. There were flashes of brilliance, but here's what I saw. Now, the primary camera is not something that we've ever seen before, and this is very new. It's a new pixel stacked Sony sensor. Apparently for foldable phones like this, where you need a space-saving solution, you can get a pixel stacked sensor and then save on space without having to lose too much on picture quality and HDR performance either. So talking about the details, OnePlus doesn't do any over sharpening, which is very good, but this sensor won't win any awards for pulling in a lot of details. The details are kind of soft when you look at the 100% crop. In less than ideal conditions, the sensor does pull in enough light, but sometimes tends to crush the shadows. But in low light, the detail retention at 100% crop is actually pretty decent. Now, with respect to HDR performance, OnePlus has generally been doing a good job this year, but since this is the first time that OnePlus is using this camera, I had to check it out, and I did notice some inconsistencies. In soft HDR scenes like this one, the sky has been well exposed, and the scene looks fairly true to life as well. I particularly like the dynamic range in these 2 indoor shots as well. And I say this because I've seen many other phones blowing out the highlights. And in this one especially, I also like the natural bokeh drop-off. In fact, the natural bokeh drop-off is so good that sometimes using the portrait mode is not even required. And you can see that in the pictures out here, the natural bokeh is so good that it is actually better than the portrait mode's blur as well. And this was taken using the primary camera in the cover screen mode. Anyway, coming back to the HDR performance, my issue was with the HDR bloom that OnePlus adds to the faces. That's a concern I've raised in many other OnePlus videos as well this year. In fact, this is a bigger problem with the 32MP selfie camera actually. As for the color reproduction, the primary camera does a good job with white balance correction. I was pleasantly surprised and happy with the fact that the white sand is actually white in this picture. The iPhone 15 Pro Max in this comparison sample actually made it warm. In fact, the Hasselblad color tuning is pretty good for shots that don't have humans in them. The extra multi-channel color temperature sensor on the rear and the 10-bit colors are definitely coming in handy. Again, I was pleasantly surprised at how in this comparison set, the iPhone looks a little too punchy and contrast heavy compared to the Open, which maintains the color balance of the scene. In the second scene, the differences in most other colors are barely visible between the two, but the white sand is more accurately captured by the OnePlus Open once again. However, that same color accuracy tendencies don't extend to the skin tones, and you can see that for yourself, because over here it's too pink compared to the accurate tone of the iPhone 15 Pro Max. As for the portrait mode, the 3x telephoto is pretty good in terms of edge cutout and depth mapping. In isolation, it looks very good, but when you bring in the iPhone 15 Pro Max's 5x portrait shots, they do look way better. iPhone 15 Pro Max's portrait shots are in a different league this year, so that's something that I had to mention. Regardless, we still did manage to get a few more great portrait shots of people, and you can take a look at them for yourself. Now, in this final sample set of HDR people pictures, again, in isolation, the OnePlus Open is good because of good HDR performance, but iPhone has so much more life in the picture. With the 32MP selfies, I suggest skipping the selfie cameras completely. Just use the cover screen mode with the primary camera to capture selfies like these. Now, coming to the ultra wide angle camera, I didn't find it very impressive with details, and it barely maintains color science consistency either. In fact, even the HDR performance is not as good as the primary. I was kind of excited for the new periscope camera on the OnePlus Open, which is at 3x. Periscope should have been slightly further zoom. But anyway, it doesn't disappoint per se. You get enough details at 3x, and it is usable until the 6x in sensor crop. Anything beyond 6x though, the artificial software enhancements don't work. In fact, when you want to zoom in low light, the 3x and 6x shots are actually digital crops of the primary camera, and we could tell that from the aperture data. Alright, moving on to videos, you can shoot 4K 60fps videos using the primary, the telephoto, and the ultrawide, and the front camera, the 32MP front camera, can actually shoot 4K 30fps videos. But then again, I would suggest that just use the primary camera for shooting, selfie videos. So the primary 4K 60fps footage is actually pretty sharp and detailed, and the natural bokeh plus sound recording is something I actually liked. But there was some gelling effect captured in certain videos with electronic image stabilization, and it is particularly visible when you compare it right next to the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And in low light videos is where OnePlus clearly suffers, as you can tell in this comparison. Here's one more sample where I could see a lot of noise in low light videos. Ultra wide 4K 60fps videos are of good quality, and so are the telephoto ones, nothing to complain about per se. By the way, with the OnePlus Open, you can also shoot 4K 30fps Dolby Vision videos. And when we shot these videos and saw them side by side in the Photos app itself, the difference in brightness information was very clearly evident, and it looks very good. Now, the selfie video recording at 4K 30fps offers great video recording quality with great EIS and actually good skin tones as well. You can just use it in the selfie preview mode, which is much more helpful. So in totality, with the Open, we are seeing the result of what can be achieved when OnePlus and Oppo go to make an all-out flagship foldable phone. I genuinely enjoyed my time with the OnePlus Open, so much so that I might go around telling everybody who can afford one to actually pick the OnePlus Open and give it a chance. And affording one requires some serious moolah, because foldable tech doesn't come cheap. But I'm glad that OnePlus has managed to undercut Samsung, which is definitely a good thing. But considering OnePlus packs in so much tech and it is the best at certain things, for example the display, I feel that the price for the OnePlus Open is actually right. Yes, it could have been lower, but this is right pricing. But I just hope that OnePlus gives more love, care and attention to the camera tuning, because the hardware is all there. Anyway, one more thing I need to mention is that OnePlus seems to be the only brand in the market right now, in the global markets at least, which can take on Samsung's juggernaut when it comes to foldable phones. And especially considering the fact that OnePlus is trying to push the phone in the US, there is also that perceived brand value of OnePlus itself. I think it can make a dent, but only time will tell if it can. But as a product that I have tested, I genuinely enjoyed using it. I hope that OnePlus can take the feedback that we've shared about the product itself and fix it in the next version, the OnePlus Open 2. But even in its current form, it's definitely worth considering. So what are your thoughts on OnePlus's first folding phone, the OnePlus Open? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, keep Trakin, stay safe, and keep opening and closing. Bye.